Andy Murray on the back of the Guardian there, celebrating after his 5-set victory, coming from 2 sets down, and Chelsea have broken the world record fee for a woman of 300 grand. They have signed Pernille Harder from Wolfsburg, who were in the final of the Champions League. The Irish tabloids, "Hello Boys" is the headline on the transfer story from Shane Duffy, who's joined Celtic on a year-long loan deal, and also Brady ready for Judgment Day. Suggestions in the paper seem to be growing that Robbie Brady will start the game against Bulgaria tomorrow night. And Brolly's claims blasted. This is a story about the Derry County Board Chairman contradicting what Joe Brolly was saying in the Sunday Independent at the weekend. Brolly had claimed the County Board in Derry were 225 grand in debt and revealed they'd taken out a 335 government COVID bounce back loan. But the Derry County Board Chairman insists that Derry GAA is on an extremely solid financial footing. The front of the Telegraph also has Andy Murray, as you would expect, as does the London Times. Seamus gets the cold shoulder. Skipper is going to miss out in Sofia. So again, it seems as if the decision has been made. Matt Doherty will start at right back. Robbie Brady will start in midfield. Duffy Selt's plea works, so that's transfer saga 2. Say it ain't so. Manchester United will not give up on Jadon Sancho until he publicly admits he wants to stay at Borussia Dortmund. So United want him to stay, he wants to stay. Dortmund want him to stay, he wants to leave. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And Lionel Messi has been handed a massive boost in his bid to join Manchester City. New Barcelona boss Ronald Koeman now believes it might be better to sell him anyway, as soon as possible. Get the money in. Ronald Koeman's going to be the man who got rid of Lionel Messi. It's quite the thing to have on your CV. True believers, players fully behind Kenny's style. Brady, that's Robbie Brady saying Stephen Kenny's style is excellent. Time to walk the walk. A day to go. Bulgaria against Ireland. And Seamus McEnany says, live with the virus or write off GAA. He was obviously doing some press yesterday ahead of games in the Monaghan Championship this weekend. Shane, a top boy. Top Boy is one of the best stuff on Netflix, by the way. If you haven't seen it, the old Channel 4 episodes are up, and the new series is also excellent. Gunners go big to grab Gab and Danny. Arsenal have completed deals for Gabriel and Danny Ceballos and are ready to spend big again. Ceballos, obviously, another loan deal. And Hendry, they think it's ball over. It's not yet. I'm making return to snooker. A shock decision. Stephen Hendry in his 50s still able to compete. That is what I have got for you. Gordon Darcy's column in the Irish Times says Munster must get in Leinster faces or face another case of the blues. Interesting to see what happens there. Will, where are we going?
Yeah, I might actually start with the rugby, Ger, because obviously a lot of coverage from the press conferences that have been happening over the last couple of days. And I was at the Munster virtual press conference yesterday morning, and Graham Rowntree was just spectacularly honest in terms of his assessment of the task that they're facing on Friday against Leinster, where he just said, and you can read the quotes on OTB Sports at the moment or across many of the newspapers today, that they've got no excuses, because it would be easy for Munster to feel sorry for themselves given the situation they've fallen into with their injuries, particularly losing 3 of their key forwards against Leinster in the fixture at the end of the regular section of the season 2 weeks ago, with John Klein and also their new signing RG Snyman and Dave Kilcoyne leaving with injuries which have probably ended their seasons. In the case of Snyman, he's gone for his surgery on his ACL, and Rowntree said, look, we have who we have. He feels that they're battle hardened. He didn't make any excuse about the fact they only have a 5-day turnaround after their win against Connacht, where they sealed their place in the semi-finals. He says they'll be back to training later today. They'll probably have to take a day off tomorrow, and then it's a case of just getting ready to go to Dublin to play against the Leinster team, where for the last 15 games they have a miserable record, just 1 win in Dublin in that period. But he said it's absolutely irrelevant, the record in Dublin so far. He says it's irrelevant the way they played against Leinster even 2 weeks ago. He says they can take a little bit of confidence from that, but he feels that there's no excuse for them being absolutely tip-top condition for that game on Friday. He's hopeful that again they can chase Leinster both at the breakdown and the lineouts, and he was very bullish about their chances of reaching the final. Munster, their supporters will no need for me to remind them, have lost to Leinster in the semi-finals of the Pro 14 in the last 2 seasons, and Johan van Graan at this stage I think is just massively determined to try and get over the line. Dami de Allende was interesting too. I'm sure this is going to get picked up, that when he signed for Munster, he didn't actually speak to Rassie Erasmus before signing on the dotted line. Johan van Graan had spoken to him while his first season was coming to an end at Panasonic in Tokyo, And then what happened was he decided to unilaterally break the clause not to stay for a second season, and then he signed for Munster. So he said when he first had conversations with Rassie Erasmus and Felix Jones and the other Munster people at South Africa at the World Cup last year, he had already signed for Munster. So he made that decision before taking any advice from the former Munster boss, Rassie Erasmus. He says he's looking forward to coming up against two world-class players in Robbie Henshaw and Gary Ringrose this weekend, when himself and Chris Farrell go up against them. Ulster's injuries are picked up in the papers too. 3 key players, and they could ill afford to have players out given that Ian Henderson's missing, Balakoon's missing at the moment, possibly Jacob Stockdale, who many people were talking up early in the week, Ger, as a potential long-term replacement for Rob Kearney at 15 for Ireland, particularly given Jordan Lammer's issues in the air against Munster a couple of weeks ago. Stockdale has a contusion, and McCloskey as well, who's been playing well in the centre, and people are talking about him getting back in and maybe playing competitively for Ireland for the first time in over 2 years. They're both now major doubts for Ulster's trip to Edinburgh. Ulster in really poor form on the back of the restart, losing their games against Connacht and Leinster. And Jordy Murphy is also touch and go for that game this weekend away to Edinburgh. He had a concussion that he picked up last week against Leinster, his former side. So if they're missing those 3, and given the injuries they've had before, it's a real uphill task for Dan McFarlane's side if they're to get a victory to reach the Pro 14 final. And of course, they've got that match against Toulouse on the horizon in the Champions Cup as well.
Yeah, so they need some form for that, absolutely. I think this is not quite 50-50, but it's not the... I think it's an 8-point spread that the bookmakers have Leinster favourites by. They won by 2 last week. There was a misconversion which would have drawn the game, and Munster did have possession, granted deep in their own half, but they were pushing hard until the interception that Devin Toner made. Like this game, I don't think it's an 8-point game at the moment, and I certainly think that Munster are going to back themselves, particularly because that whole notion of being battle hardened is something that they're going to be tired. It's like, actually no, they've literally had 5 months off and played 2 games, and now this is going to be their 3rd game. So I think, like, wouldn't you prefer to be in their scenario? Granted, notwithstanding they've had some significant injuries, but those players know exactly what their form is. They're absolutely confident that when they hit a line or when they make a tackle or when they're over a ball, that they've done this and they're fully up to match speed. Leinster changed their team completely from one week to the next.
Yeah, look, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Either Leinster are going to be entirely refreshed and coming back into this game with options, and we spoke yesterday about Dan Levy potentially being back and on the bench. You've got James Ryan, who was running just before the game last weekend against Ulster. Even when you give the strength and depth that Leinster already have, it's amazing to have those 2 coming back in. But yeah, I mean, you have a point that Munster have played with a pretty settled 15 injuries aside for the last couple of weeks, and Graham Rowntree was making the point that, look, they've had all summer off and they've been trying to peak their fitness to be ready for a 3 or 4 game series in a month, and he says there's no reason that they shouldn't be at absolute top condition. And since the summer they've been able to add a top operator in Diolande into their team. Their lineout's been really impressive. They've won every single one of their own lineouts since the restart, and they seem to have really benefited from this change in the breakdown. Their back row forwards got over the ball a lot. They've been winning penalties, and they gave Leinster a proper scare in that game 2 weeks ago. I think tactically Munster had to make sure they got the defensive bonus point. If that had been cup rugby at the end, albeit 80 metres from goal, you wouldn't have had Casey kicking that ball out at the end of the game.
No.
O'Mahony would have been saying, look, we're going for a run up the field. So yeah. I think we can expect another close game. I'd be surprised if there was more than a try between the 2 teams on Friday night.
Look, I think it's a definite trap game, and it's a cup final for Munster. Their season is over if they lose it. So let's talk about the other GAA story. This is Carlo Kane's piece in the Star. He is saying the Derry chairman is defiant that they're not in financial trouble, despite what Joe Brolly was saying at the weekend.
Yeah, I guess to kind of set the context on this, Joe Brolly in his article on the Sunday Independent had claimed that he had spoken to 2 of his former Derry teammates, one being Fergal McCusker, who's currently on the financial committee in Derry. And the claim was that the Oakleaf County have fallen into a situation where they're borrowing £300,000 because it will be a bounce back loan, I think is what he called it in the article. And he said that the county are currently $200,000 in debt. And as a result, they're concerned about whether they can field a team in the All-Ireland Football Championship in 2021. Well, Derry put out a statement yesterday afternoon in response to that. Basically, they were looking to try and clarify the situation. There was an extract from the Treasurer, Martin Devlin, in here, and he said that they've got $6 million in assets in terms of if they do have to take some of that money that's been made available to them, the $300,000, it would be to see them through as opposed to them being into financial trouble. They explained that the debt that they're currently servicing isn't external debt, but it's debt that goes back on the construction work on Celtic Park and also on Owen Begg, which goes back to 2013. And so the point that they were making is that they haven't taken on debt as a result of the COVID situation. So it's not an immediate concern in terms of the books. They pointed out as well that they took in around £70,000 in the group stages of the Derry Football Championship, and that £70,000 has now been redistributed back to the clubs because that's an agreement they had with the clubs before they came up with the format of home, away and neutral for the group stages. So they're pretty strongly refuting the idea that Derry are in financial trouble, and entirely refuting the idea, I think the chairman called it nonsense, that they wouldn't be fielding a team in the championship next year. It's not to say that some other counties haven't made this argument though, Ger. I know that Billy Foley, the Westmeath GAA chairman, has said in recent weeks that there's a strong possibility that they could lose up to €400,000 this year. And if that were to happen, they would be in a very difficult position to try and field for next year. Peter O'Neill, the Laois chairman, said a couple of weeks ago that, again, they could be looking at losses of around $250,000. But you would wonder if these chairpersons are currently outlining their position to guarantee that if the GAA are going to have some kind of relief fund that's being mooted at the moment, that they make sure that that money trickles down to the county boards. Like, it's a very clever move if you outline your position that if we don't get this money, we won't be able to participate in your championship next year.
Yeah.
It certainly gives you a better bargaining position if you're trying to get money from them.
It's megaphone diplomacy, old school. 15 minutes past 9 here this morning. Will, one quick last story for us. Great news at the weekend. David Gough was back refereeing. We weren't sure that we were going to see this year.
Yeah, look, one of the top refs in the country. He was back in the Meath Championship. First time he's refereed in the 6 months since the start of the pandemic. He was in charge for Colmkill against Dunshaughlin. You might remember back in June that David Gough said, look, with social distancing in place, I don't see how I can referee games. He says the reason that he's gone back refereeing is because he was basically took some heart from the fact that the cool camps were run as well as they were and how successfully they were run with social distancing. So he's back refereeing in the Meath Championship, which means there's a good chance he's going to be on the national panel for the games when Inter-County comes back, fingers crossed, in a couple of months' time. And also interesting, just on the side of that, in terms of David Gough, a story we're running ourselves on the OTB Sports website at the moment. You might remember that David Gough had called previously for the pride flag to be flown above Croke Park. We got a response from the GAA. They say that it's a protocol situation, so it would have to be discussed at committee level. But the GAA say that they're very open to the idea of other symbols of inclusion being used around Croke Park, whether that be on some of the boarding. They were encouraging maybe teams to use rainbow laces. All those kind of ideas are open, and they're also going to have a conversation about the idea of a flag being there. But they did point out that the protocols currently are that the flags are for the national flag and the flags of the counties who are participating. So it's something that would require a bit of a change at protocol level in Croke Park.
Even the encouragement of players to wear rainbow laces is a significant step forward from the point where he said back in 2015 he spoke to various people who told him that his refereeing career would be over if he wore the rainbow armband. So that is progress, and you can check out that full story and a very detailed response from the GAA about their initiatives to encourage the LGBT plus community to come forward and to be an inclusive part of the GAA. That is on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. I'll tell you what's on the app at the moment here. We can flick that up for you. As ever, you get to decide what's on the stream yourself. The Tiger Woods is irrelevant. A brilliant piece with Harry Edwards last night where he essentially very quickly, in the space of, I'd say, 30 seconds, said that actually nothing that Tiger Woods says on this instant on the issues of race would be of any interest or of any value at this point. Very interesting interjection. You can get our podcast network there. You can get all our videos as well. And you can download that for free in the App Store if you just search OTB Sports in the App Store now.